December 12th, 2018, Prosper Portland Board of Commissioners meeting is convened. Pam, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Platt?
Here.
Commissioner Gambetti?
Here.
Commissioner Moreland-Capuya?
Here.
Chair Cruz?
Present.
Vice Chair Myers?
Here. All right, we're going to start off with commissioner reports. Dr. Caporli, sorry, oh my God. Commissioner. Capulia Mora.
This is the comedy club. So
I know that.
we practice that. So
Commissioner Gambetti.
Commissioner, yeah, on November 28th, I attended the Broadway Corridor Open House in the Lentz District.
Chair Cruz.
Nothing to report.
Okay. Commissioner Platt.
Yes, Monday, December 10th, I attended the Sledge the Shack event at Hacienda CDC and also visited ZGF Architects to get a briefing on the Broadway Corridor project.
And I attended the Broadway Corridor Steering Committee on November 27th and the Broadway Corridor Open House on the 28th of November. So, Executive Director Brenham.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Great to be here with you. We are, for anybody who's watching on TV, we are at the Curious Comedy Club in Vanport Square. We just had our all-day board retreat where we talked about some of the lessons that we've learned over the last year and talked about our priorities going forward. Want to appreciate the time with the board. And it's great to be here at Curious Comedy. We just had a chance to tour some of the affordable commercial spaces that are coming online, so great to be here in this space. Wanted to just touch on a few things that have been happening in the last month. As was mentioned, the Broadway Corridor Project hosted its third open house. This one was at the Asian Health and Service Center in Lentz. It was on November 28th. You're going to hear more from Sarah Harpel and the team about what's going to happen next, but I wanted to recognize and appreciate June Reyes, Sarah Harpel, and the entire Broadway Corridor team for putting on such a quality open house and gathering so much community input that we know will be incorporated into the next phase. The Portland Film Office, in partnership with Oregon Made Creative Foundation, announced the recipient of its first Portland Post-Production Grant Program. The grant program is intended to support the professional development of local Portland filmmakers. So 4 local filmmakers will each receive $5,000 for their respective projects, and we were particularly excited that one of the grant recipients, Rose High Bear, is an Inclusive Business Resource Network client who has been supported by PSU in their business outreach program. So great to see businesses receive support from multiple partners. Thank you to Brian Lord with the Office of Film and Video for his great work on this project. I also want to note that applications are now open for Prosper Portland's first small business internship grants. Prosper Portland is partnering with Emerging Leaders Internship Program, or ELI, to offer the grants, which will cover part of the match fee and up to 80% of the intern's salary for a 10-week placement. Eligible businesses must be in the Portland region and have less than 50 employees to be part of this program. And there will be up to 12 businesses that will be supported through this partnership, which gives opportunities for really exemplary university students from diverse backgrounds to be able to engage in a number of different work opportunities. Applications are due by midnight on Monday, December 31st, so you can go to emergingleaderspdx.org for more information. I also want to encourage everyone to stop by the My People's Market pop-up at Lloyd Center, which is happening now through December 29th. You can find more about this at My People's Market business. You can find more than 20 of these businesses at Lloyd Center. The pop-up is located on the west end of the mall on the 2nd floor, right across from Made in Portland. I want to acknowledge all of our outstanding partners at Lloyd Center and Bobby Stewart of Palette 42 a local business that's a member of our 42nd Neighborhood Prosperity Initiative District, who is curating and really making sure that there's a good experience within the pop-up shop. I also want to thank Tori Campbell and Amanda Park for being the champions and stewards of this. Prosper Portland sponsored the Portland State University Business Outreach Program, and they are recruiting for the Increase Project. So this is a one-year intensive growth-focused program that combines advanced business skills building and group learning with one-on-one advisor support. Each participant learns the skills and tools to create and implement a business plan that's focused on growth. It focuses on businesses owned by people of color. There's also Spanish language advising, and bilingual teaching is available. The 2019 cohort begins in February, so please go to interise.org/increaseproject for more information. Finally, want to note that the next meeting of the Hill Block Project Working Group is Wednesday, January 2nd from 5:30 to 8 p.m., and you can find out more information about that on our website. Thank you.
Everyone's received the minutes. I would entertain a motion to approve from November 14th. Is there a second?
Second?
All those in favor? Aye. Okay.
Aye.
All right. So is there any public comment not on the agenda? Okay, not seeing none. We'll move on to Sarah Harpel. You're up next.
Good afternoon. I'm Sarah Harpel. I'm a project coordinator in the Development and Investment team working on the Broadway Corridor project. Today, I wanted to provide you a brief update on where we are within the project, as well as some recommended scope and schedule modifications, a portion of which do require board action to authorize a amendment to the ZGF contract we have today. I'm going to go fairly quickly through. I have a number of images, but I'm going to run through them fairly quickly. I know I'm the last thing that stands between you and the end of this meeting after a long day, but stop me along the way if you do want to pause and speak to any of the images further. We can also make the deck available if you want to review them and follow up with anything. I am also joined today by representatives of the Continuum team and shortly representatives of the ZGF team. Sorry, you're going to have to make us closer. Yeah, it's a little long. Okay. For those who may be watching at home, a quick reminder of the study area we refer to as the Broadway Corridor is shown here in green, and then we have a requirement for a formal master plan for the post office property we acquired with the Portland Housing Bureau. So this is kind of the subject of the discussion today. And also as a quick reminder of kind of where we are in the project, when I was before you in October, we had just completed our visioning and preliminary concept work, and so we had shown an update of what those concepts look like. Earlier in the remarks, the open house was noted, and so we've been digging into a lot of stakeholder engagement to inform how those concepts have been refined, and we're going to show a preview of that information today. Our next step would have come in January to dig into an evaluation of those concepts and just select a single concept to move forward for further refinement. We are recommending an extension of about 2 months of our current phase to allow us to dig into some additional baseline feasibility and some other stakeholder conversations before we move into that next phase of work. So this shows kind of briefly the impact to that schedule. It would mean, again, reconvening with our steering committee and other stakeholders in March, and then a slight extension to their engagement into July of 2019. So when I was before you last, again, I've been warned this was wonky. We were digging into the preliminary concepts. We use our guiding principles and our project goals as a continuing kind of framing device for the input that we're hearing and how those informs the concepts. We have done an extensive community engagement process to continue to obtain feedback on those concepts and inform the refinement. So I also want to echo the acknowledgement of June Reyes' effort. She's done a significant effort into both our steering committee support and open houses, but really kind of pushing how we can engage members of the community, whether it's through pop-up events, community tabling. So she's done a pretty significant effort and is working to pull together a pretty thorough documentation of that input that we've heard and how it is impacting our work moving forward. So in here is just in a very quick summary of kind of those key priorities we see showing up, how they relate to our guiding principles. We are receiving advice of both how these things could be operationalized in the physical plan, but how they also may inform future community benefits agreement commitments as well. Also, as we have continued to keep kind of our intention around equitable design at the forefront, as well as we've looked at our concepts. Some of the feedback that we have received of how that shows up in the physical planning work right now is one, continuing that robust and extensive engagement of diverse voices to make sure that their voices are showing up and informing our concepts. But also, as we look at the public realm, being mindful that the space feels welcoming, and to many people that translates to not having kind of a requirement to be in that space. So you're not there to pay for an event, you're not there to participate in a formal organized activity. You are welcome there to just be in that space and not feel like there's an obligation of you in that space. That being said, if you do want to participate in some of the surrounding commercial activities or other opportunities, making sure that we have a range of those and that they are affordable to a wider range of the community. And then balancing kind of our investment in the public realm and the infrastructure with our intent to deliver on other community benefits, and so finding that balance of our investment in both the physical but also the future operations and other benefits of this development. As we've looked at the concepts, given this feedback, we've assumed many things have remained consistent across all concepts. They may not be reflected in the level of detail of the concepts currently, but we're holding those as kind of fixed assumptions as we look at the concepts moving forward. We're also using them as an opportunity to test some different scenarios and to obtain feedback on those. So I will quickly run through some of those variations that we are testing. The three concepts that we've continued to refine, again, are play, nature, and discovery, and I'll speak to a little bit about the vision that sits behind those in a minute, but just to kind of compare and contrast, this shows the open space configuration based on feedback we've received over the last about month and a half from both stakeholders and our public partners. They've all been slightly modified to have a greater integration of flexible, programmable space. So in some instances, we've consolidated some smaller spaces, both to make them multi-purpose and flexible based on the user's interests, but also to feel more welcoming and not like you're in kind of somebody's intimate backyard. We've looked at variations of how the green loop intersects with through these concepts. Again, based on feedback, we've taken a more centralized route and the prominence of the green loop through the space. So in prior concepts, you saw some that went off and integrated in Union Station, but based on feedback of kind of keeping this a core element of the development. And then the resulting street grid and kind of parcel breakdown and looking at some of the phasing implications. Currently, we've kept the development program consistent across all three concepts, and they have a comparable ratio of development to public infrastructure, but there are slight variations, and we're proposing to dig into kind of the implications of those variations in the coming months. And then lastly, we've looked at variations of how the development could embrace and integrate Union Station into development. So these are three different scenarios we've looked at. We've also held conversations with the consultant team, as well as had a lot of feedback from the steering committee and others of how various elements of these concepts might be able to integrate it. So in some scenarios, one solution for Union Station might be able to kind of be mixed and matched. And so where are there limitations and opportunities to kind of pick between elements as we move forward? So just as a quick recap of the concepts and where they stand now, play is the concept that really focused on health and wellness and community resiliency, whether that's in the case of an event, but also kind of social cohesion and opportunities for people to come together. As such, it's organized around a kind of a large central open space. It's really an extension of the park blocks, but gives the greatest flexibility. So if you needed to use some of that public open space for staging in an event, in a natural disaster, or for kind of community activity and engagement, you have that flexibility there. The concept has been modified over the past couple of months. There was some feedback around kind of the large block size we had, and so we clarified and refined that block size to make it something that's more typical of what you see in the Portland grid. Again, centralizing the green loop. We did some studies, it's not reflected on this diagram, but where various opportunities might be for siting of affordable housing. We received a lot of feedback of kind of the appropriate locations, and so identifying where those may best be located. Again, looking at Union Station Plaza and then enhancing that flexibility of the central space. So at first it kind of read as being very sports focused, but making some refinements so it had greater flexibility for multi-purpose use there. Back one. Here's a error on this slide, but this is how the massing may look if you apply the 3.8 million square feet we had in the framework plan, how it may manifest physically on this site. So this is wonky. And then quickly, this is a view if you were sitting in the existing park blocks looking into the development, what it might feel like at the ground level of the space, and kind of the openness and the vista of the taller building kind of as a focal point at the end of the Broadway Bridge viaduct. Nature is the concept that really focused on the integration of nature and kind of the feeling of forest in an urban setting, and kind of emphasizing green building elements within the project. This configuration has kind of a more organic breakdown. It breaks away from the standard street grid. We did, however, make some modifications based on this. Yeah. I can speak to it without the image. We did make some modifications to still maintain the more organic feel and breaking down of the street grid, but kind of regularizing some of the parcels. We had some concern about the feasibility of that more organic shape, as well as how it better interfaces with Northwest 9th and kind of the street frontage there, and maybe making it not feel so kind of inward focusing. Again, each of the concepts were also modified. There was concern on this concept around the sense of safety and welcome that this concept may lend itself to, particularly if it was perceived as being very heavily forested. And so kind of lightening up and also increasing the flexibility of that more centralized open space, and so making some modifications there. And then also clarifying the kind of as this grade change ramps up to the Broadway Bridge Y, of looking at universal design criteria and making sure that was a more accessible grade change. Again, if that massing, if the massing of the 3.8 million square feet was applied to this site, what it may look like. And the view again from the park blocks into the space. You see the vista is slightly more broken up, and it starts to weave around the buildings in their front to reach up to the Broadway Bridge. Mostly. Okay. The final concept is discovery. Again, this was a more focused on incremental and fine-grained development and being a network of alleys and open spaces, and so had a slightly more intimate feel to those open spaces. However, some of the feedback that we received was that those didn't always those didn't always feel welcoming, and so looking to kind of consolidate some of those open spaces, so we had greater flexibility of programming, but also maintain a mix of spaces where people could be within that development. This concept was similar to one of the prior concepts. We also received feedback on digging a little deeper where affordable housing might be best dispersed across the site, and looking at those opportunities, as well as the integration of Union Station within the plaza. So this concept, if you could see it, would have more of a roundabout within the driveway of Union Station. So looking at how that plaza area both gave some relief to Union Station, but also integrated you into Johnson Avenue. And then next I would show you what the massing would look like on that site. As well as the view from the park blocks. I'm happy to send you the slides so you can see them. Do you want to pause and wait for this catch up, or should I can just verbally do it? Okay. As I mentioned, we are proposing a couple modifications to our scope and to schedule, a portion of which are subject to the resolution before you today. I'm going to briefly walk through kind of those key elements. The first is a development impact study. The value of that work is about $82,000. It would be performed by Eco Northwest, Kittleson, and ZGF. We had, in our original base scope, we had planned to do some baseline assessment of both the the prior post office use within the downtown location and the future redevelopment. So we had that baseline analysis, particularly as we were looking at community benefits and ongoing oversight, based on stakeholder interest, to kind of expand that look and also include the actual relocation of the post office to the Colwood Golf Course. We are expanding the scope of work to look at the relocation and the impacts that it would have to the Colwood neighborhood, and also expanding the number of variables that we're looking at in that baseline. So looking at economic impacts, social impacts, and environmental. We are still working through what data we can obtain from the post office. So the work is somewhat dependent on what information we can get from our partners within the project. The work is being managed by the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability, so it's a partnership with them, given that we're looking at both the zone change and that resulted in the transition from the golf course to the industrial park and the relocation of the post office there. And we are working with an advisory committee that has representatives from the Colwood or Coley neighborhood, Old Town, Chinatown, and the Pearl District to advise on that work moving forward. And so we would expect that this work would take place between now and approximately May, and would help inform community benefit agreements moving forward. The other component is also an extension of work that was in the original baseline contract. So we're adding approximately $2,000 to a scope of work that's underway for cultural and historical resources research. We found additional resources and information that we wanted to integrate into the study, and so making some additional fee available for that work to complete. And then the last component of work impacting the ZGF contract is taking a look. We had done the baseline feasibility analysis within the framework plan, but a lot of assumptions have changed, and we know more about the site and kind of our development intentions. And so updating some of those assumptions and digging into a little deeper, particularly on the things that happen kind of below grade, if you will. And so looking at site preparation. So what does it look like to relocate the post office relocation, building demolition, site prep that needs to occur after that, environmental remediation, cut and fill, as those components to getting site development ready. Digging in further into utility capacity and whether there are implications for existing utility capacity and whether development thresholds would trigger additional upgrades. We had an early conversation with the Bureau of Environmental Services this morning that make me optimistic about kind of the outcomes of some of that work, but also understanding kind of the implications for phasing over time and where those utilities are placed and how it may impact the location of density over time. Similarly, looking at the street typology, so there are different implications depending on where the utilities are placed, whether they're in public streets or in private easements or private property with public easements, and so looking at kind of the relationship of those different assumptions. And then finally, adding some additional work to our market study to look in more detail at market absorption assumptions, how that impacts our parking strategy and phasing as well. And so we are, I can show you now maybe. We are taking a baseline concept that it really is intended to reflect kind of the minimum code requirements for development to proceed on this site. And so we are still in the process of refining it. It looks similar to the assumptions in the framework plan in terms of the amount of open space and the 2 public rights of way, but digging in a little further to understand the implications of the easements and the development parcels as a result of this. We would then use this baseline analysis as well as a high-level estimate of the 3 concepts to kind of look at what are the implications of some of the other assumptions, whether it's grade change, bringing the green loop through the site, enhancements to streets and parks, to understand the implication of those concepts and to inform the selection of one that would move forward for further refinement. So this work would happen through early spring of next year to inform that work. During this time, we also want to do some additional work around defining our community benefits process, and so identifying both kind of criteria or what it means to really be a signatory to the community benefits agreement, and then working with likely signatories to kind of co-create what that negotiation process looks like, and working on our summary of what we're hearing as priorities that would want to be integrated into that community benefits agreement moving forward. And so spending a couple months really digging in with those partners to understand what that process looks like. And then similarly, while we won't be engaging the steering committee over the next couple months, we did want to create a space and opportunity for them to self-identify key topics that they felt like they really wanted to dig in further with, whether it's with our staff, our bureau partners, and others. So we've heard interest in better understanding some affordable housing considerations or parks and streets infrastructure applications. So we're kind of holding kind of deep dive conversations with folks who want to opt into those conversations with us. in summary, I will say, we do anticipate, we're refining kind of schedule implications right now, but it would have about a 2-month impact to the timeline of the development planning process. We have other aspects of the project that we're kind of driving the critical path. So in totality across the project schedule, we don't think it would have a significant schedule impact to our ability to move actually into the implementation phase. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Actually, I think we have representatives from ZGF and Continuum. If anyone has any questions of them. And then we'll bring you back up for a couple additional. Please come to the front. Anybody have any questions?
I'd just love to hear from you guys, your thoughts on it. I've been to several open houses, and I know you're getting a lot of feedback from the community. I'm wondering if you're hearing any strong voices in support of any particular key elements, and how you're processing the feedback, the mixed feedback.
So the aspect of this project that is probably the most different from past projects is that people come in so strongly concerned with the affordable housing aspect. You know, the fact that we're in a housing crisis comes through every meeting that we have. I also participated in a focus group at NEA, this was just last weekend. And similarly, the first few questions were all about that. And so what's interesting is that as a design firm, we're used to going in with design options and getting feedback on sort of some of the place-making aspects. And I think where that might be normally a 90-10 conversation, it's 50-50 at best. And so we have been getting a lot of positive feedback on concepts and some of the sense of equitable, welcoming place that everyone feels comfortable. We do hear things about don't make it just an extension of the Pearl, make it something else special, make it a regional destination. And then we've gotten some more fine-grained details that you can see reflected in the concepts and that we can continue to move in a direction. I think generally there's a lot of enthusiasm about it and an appreciation of what it can contribute to some of the social and economic goals that the city has.
Chair Cruz, do you have any questions? Okay, I'll take that as a no. So Sarah, I have one question for you actually, just real quick. Is there any update on the relocation of the storefront for USPS?
We recently completed work, had JLL complete work on doing kind of a site survey within the geographic boundary that the post office had defined. The high-level outcome of that is most viable projects are properties that we already control or have relationships with, whether it be Greyhound or kind of other immediately properties within the area. We are now working on kind of what is a baseline layout for the post office, so what's kind of the minimum footprint required, so that could inform how it could be combined with other potential uses on whether it's on those properties, whether it's Block R, Greyhound, the post office, and so we're kind of continuing to define what that would look like to place it within those properties, and whether it could be on an interim or modular basis, or whether it would be in kind of new construction before they could be relocated and the impacts to the schedule.
Thank you. Is there any other questions of either Sarah or CGF or Continuum?
I just think it'd be great to hear from Continuum as well, since you come from faraway places. And hear, a little bit about what you think this next phase, particularly the development feasibility effort, should produce.
Yeah, that's a great question. We've actually been deeply involved in those conversations with your staff to make sure that as we are bringing information forward and asking you as commissioners, steering committee members, and the community at large to provide input and provide feedback on a preferred alternative or a preferred concept plan, that everybody has common knowledge and understanding of the feasibility of the project in order to make informed decisions going forward. As I think I mentioned in the last time that I was before you in a conversation, there will be trade-offs that will have to be made, and in order to have a productive conversation about those trade-offs, we need to understand the basic fundamental feasibility of the project. So I think everything that we're working on right now with the Prosper team, with ZGF and the consultant team, is giving us that baseline of common information and knowledge we can all work from. I do want to echo what Nolan said. I think what I've probably been most surprised by in the conversation with folks in the community is far less about the physical place that's being designed and created, and much more about the way the project is executed, how the project, once it's complete, is managed. Those seem to be the issues and concerns that people are raising at the forefront. Affordability is a huge set of issues that have been brought forward, not only on the housing, but on commercial space as well. So I think it's been interesting that there's been very little, at least that I've seen in the smaller groups that I've participated in, with critical feedback on the physical plan. It's been about everything but the physical plan, which in order to have those conversations, we still need to understand, again, that baseline feasibility of what does it take to build a place, so that we understand how much money and resources are we dealing with that are available to then implement all of the other things that are really the pieces that are most important to the broader community that have been participating in the process.
All right. Seeing no more questions, would definitely entertain a motion for resolution 7297.
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thanks, Chair Cruz.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. It's passed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And the meeting of the Prosper Portland Board of Commissioners is now adjourned. We made it. And he hung up.